guys. It's the top 10 guys coming at you with the top 10 sports movies of all time.
Number 10. That's quick. We'll just get right into it.
Number 10 is going to be Major League. For me, Major League was just, it was first of all, I guess I'll talk about the fact that it made fun of a pro sports team and actually used their logos and incorporated a real Major League Baseball team into a movie. Because, before it was always like, they didn't have the licensing and they would have a hat with like the logo blurred out or something, or just a plain navy blue hat or something like that. And I think it was the first time that they actually took something from real life, sports wise, and incorporated it into a movie. So to me, that was cool. I mean, the catchphrases, I'm sure we'll get into, the other guys will get into that a little bit, but just a really good movie. It was funny, and like I said, kind of bridged that gap of just generic sports movies to an actual affiliated sports movie.
Yeah.
I think.
Go.
I was just saying. For me, I was like, I think it ended up on all three of our lists, I believe. I had it a little bit lower. I think some of it was cliche a little bit. It was but there were some great one-liners. It's a movie that you can turn on if you're a baseball fan, if you're a comedy fan. You can turn it on and watch it. There's
just a bit outside.
Bob Uecker in there. I mean, just the epitome of Bob Uecker. Everything about minus the it must be in the front row. That was the only thing missing from Bob Uecker in that. Drinking the whole time. He's sitting there, shots of Jack. So I mean, yeah, the movie had great stuff. I could see where it's a little cliche, but you know what? Almost every sports fan has it somewhere on the list, and I think that's how it ended up in our top 10.
And the line, like we said, the lines from that movie is just, and to this day, when I see a huge home run, I was like, no, it's too high, too high. And it's just like 400-foot home run. I mean, I think there's so many lines from that movie that was just right there.
If it wasn't a comedy, I think it would be the iconic movie of the time for baseball.
Oh, he did it. He dropped the first icon of the first night. We're going to get a little counter over here.
Released in 1989, grossed $50 million worldwide. Tom Berenger, Charlie Sheen, Corbin Burnson, Rene Russo, Wesley Snipes, Bob Uecker. Uecker's lines were all made up on the fly. It wasn't right. It was all improvised, which was.
And that's an all-star cast. Especially at the time, all those actors and actresses were top notch at the time. It wasn't just like guys at the end of their career, like the actors in the movies, and the baseball players at the end of their careers. It was actually, they were in the prime.
And Bob Uecker talking about Charlie Sheen saying he just got called up from the California Penal League. I mean, come on.
The other thing, there's a couple things I want to talk about real quick. Pedro Serrano. Dennis Haysbert. He also is the Allstate guy.
He is. And also was the president in 24.
Yes.
I learned that today. Thank you, Chris. I'm today years old, learned that one.
But I found Ricky Vaughn's transactions, how he got drafted and picked. Drafted by the Dodgers in the 5th round of the '84 draft out of high school. He was released by the Dodgers May 1st, 1987, following arrest for grand theft auto. Got picked up into the California Penal League.
Nice. That was totally freelance. We did not
in 1988, and then he signed with the Indians as a free agent February 9th of 1989.
Very nice.
And the rest is history.
After all that, it belongs to him. That's
belongs in there for sure.
Yes. Agreed. She's a beauty, that number 9. So number 9 is going to be the Bad News Bears.
The original Bad News Bears.
Yes, not the remake.
76.
76, that's what I thought. Okay.
For me, this movie is what I've never been to California, but for me, this is the stereotypical what I feel 80s, late 80s, early 70s or late 70s, early 80s. California was probably like. To me, I think this is just everything. The guys riding around on the dirt bike in the outfield, and the mountains in the background, and the long-haired kids and the Mexican kids. I mean, I think to me it just really. I think it was a great movie and it was about baseball and everything, but to me it was just it kind of introduced what California life was for the guys that had never been out there. I'm sure these guys will have some more to add, but for me, that was the biggest thing I took out of it. It was a good movie and all that, but it's just like that SoCal life, It's like that was really, to me, influential growing up.
Well, and so I think just in general, sports movies. That's where movies are entertainment, sports are entertainment. When you merge the two together, you know, it's just all, you know, you're looking for all the little victories. You're looking for the, you know, the underdogs winning, the all, you know. So that's a lot of these movies. I mean, that's what we're always looking for in these movies. And this movie, you know, it was, you know, a little tongue-in-cheek humor, you know, the whole time, you know, the coach drinking the whole time. I mean, you know, just the, again, just like.
And I think we all had a Little League coach that fit that role, because I know I did.
Yeah, or someone we suspected, oh, they might be drinking. They just came out and showed it, bam, he's drinking. That's it, you know, and that was, and I think that was the whole point. It was just, you know, took it to the extreme of took every little stereotype and just brought it all in there. And but we all could relate to, you know, because we knew those types of kids or those types of parents or that coach, and it was just, I think.
Not to mention it hit on the fact of like the daddy ball. And because the Yankees team where the guy was so psycho with his kid and he ripped him off the mound, you know, that all of us being dads of kids that have played sports, it really was like the beginning of what daddy ball was going to become, you know?
You know, and every town had that girl that was just a phenomenal athlete that would just play with the boys, and I think that was kind of the cool thing too, that, you know, that girl would just step up and just mow him down the mound. That was kind of, I mean, you know, we all knew that girl that was just, you know, like that.
Released in '76, like we said, grossed around $42 million. Walter Matthau, Tatum O'Neal, and Jackie Earl Haley, who also played Freddy Krueger in the 2010 version of Nightmare on Elm Street. The tagline for this movie is classic. The coach is waiting for his next beer. The pitcher is waiting for her first bra. The team is waiting for a miracle. Consider the possibilities.
Hello, best movie.
And sponsor was Chico Bail Bonds. How could you go wrong?
And one of the best quotes in there was from Buttermaker, and he says, "Now get back to the stands before I shave off your mustache and shove it up your left nostril." It's like perfect. Okay.
All right, number 8 is going to be Miracle. This movie to me was more of a documentary, really, than just for me personally. I'm not saying it wasn't a movie, but it was a documentary for me because I didn't know the story. For some reason, that just kind of the 80 hockey team kind of slipped my memory, or I didn't even know about it. Whatever it was, I didn't know a lot about it, so I went into this movie watching it just for the information, and it was a great story. And you know, Kurt Russell for to make them, you know, Chris will get into the stats in a minute, but to make the money that it did with not really that big of a star-studded cast is really just Kurt Russell was a real big star in it, and for it to make the kind of money it did with just one star supporting it, I think that goes to show you how strong the story was. The story was, like I said, unbelievable. I had no idea. I really didn't. I knew 1980 hockey team won the gold medal, but I didn't know the story and how strong the Russians were, and you know how much of a better team they were, and some of the coaching phrases and cliches that he uses in that movie are just ones I use as a coach still to this day. So to me, that's why this movie was important, is just because of the information it gave and some of the coaching cliches.
Well, and I think kind of the opposite of Dave, I do remember the 1980, and that was like, I remember I watched that, and I was gung-ho for sports. I'm like, okay, let me go play baseball, let me do this, I want to go play hockey, and you know, it was like spring, you know, turning into spring, so my dad's like, go play baseball. I'm like, okay, I'll play baseball, and ended up I wanted to be Jim Craig, the goalie. I ended up being a catcher, you know, as close as I could get to that, but I think, you know, I said earlier that you know, all these sports movies, we want to see that underdog, you know, fight up and battle against. That's what, you know, so many of these sports movies are. And you know, a lot of these were made up stories, but this one was real. And this, I think that's what the impact of how it really, you know, the nationalism that it pulled up, and just the, you know, I mean, we weren't even supposed to be in that game, you know, and to beat the Russians, we had all amateur players. At that time they had, you know, it was before they opened it up to all the pros. So you know, the other countries that didn't have pros, they had much better, older, stronger athletes playing. We had kids playing, and they went out and, you know, pulled the miracle off.
Yeah. Released in 2004, grossed around $64 million, like you said. Definitely a Disney-fied movie. I mean, the story there was flat, but you know, they pumped it up. Buzz Schneider was portrayed by his own son Billy in the movie, which was kind of neat. The 1980 Olympic team obviously wasn't supposed to beat the Soviets, let alone win the gold medal, and it wasn't even the gold medal game.
Right.
So it was just as big. Of the 20 players that played on that team, 13 of them ended up in the NHL. Ron Murrow was the first person to win an Olympic medal and a Stanley Cup, and he did it in the same year. So that's where that ties in. And then Al Michaels' catchphrase, 5 seconds left, do you believe in miracles? Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So it
I
just,
think another catchphrase from that movie too is what I like is when Kurt Russell kept on asking, "Who do you play for?" and he kept on saying the college team, and then when they finally realized what he was trying to teach them, he said USA Hockey. I think that was iconic. Yes. That's my first one.
Bring it up.
All right, number 7 is going to be White Man Can't Jump. To me, this is a great movie. I think we just went in there. The directors and the producers went in there and just kind of took all the stereotypes of the ghetto and just kind of like threw it at you. They weren't worried about offending anybody. They weren't worried about stereotypes. They were just like, here's your white guy. He can't jump. Everybody knows white people can't jump, and we're gonna make a movie out of it. And it ended up being a huge hit. I really liked it. I think I had it a little bit higher on my list, but I think just some of the dialogue between Woody Harrelson and Wesley Snipes was just good. You know, the whole line about listening and hearing Jimmy when they're driving down the road in the car. I think that there's a lot to be said for that. You know, it sounds so simple. You're listening, but you're not hearing it. But there's a lot to be said in today's society. There's a lot to be said for that. But that's just one of my favorite lines from the movie. Andy?
I mean, Wesley Snipes at that time, I mean, he's on 2 of these lists already. So, I mean, he was, but like, I think for Woody Harrelson, it really, like he had that character from Cheers, that Woody, and that kind of springboard him where, oh, he wasn't this just naive
Dumb
little
Indiana
kid.
kid.
Yeah, he actually, I mean, this was more the persona that he ran with than the one he was. You thought that, you know, some of those actors get stuck in that. He was kind of the, you know, just a little bit on the edge, and you know, now he's, you know, he's always the bad guy, the villain in a lot of movies now, or the tough guy. So this was kind of the springboarded that. Great, you know, comedy, just watching the street ball. I think that, you know, the whole thing of getting playing back and forth, it was just, you know, it's very entertaining. It's, you know, again, a lot of one-liners. It's, you know, it just brings basketball, that type of basketball, into into mainstream there a little bit.
Billy, listen to me. White men can't jump.
He dunked at the end. Maybe.
Released in '92, made $90 million. We said Harrelson, Snipes, Rosie Perez, Kadeem Hardison from A Different World,
Yep.
Tyra Farrell. This is the second movie that Snipes and Harrelson were in. They were also in Wildcats together, which is a great movie too.
Ooh, I learned something tonight too. See? Wow, we gotta teach you something tonight.
The other great quote out of that is, "We gonna sizzle, we gonna sizzle." But for me, the movie's more about the hustling and keeping up and trying to make the money. You know, Harrelson's got the guys looking for their money on his back, so they're always trying to get ahead, and every time they get ahead, they're going behind. Rosie Perez getting on Jeopardy and playing that towards the end, and them sitting there watching, and they're all nervous. And that, to me, that movie just kind of brought that era together through basketball. Because you know, we talk about a lot of baseball movies and football and stuff, but as a basketball movie with characters you wouldn't think together, it made that movie in that time.
And just how they clicked. I mean, I think just the chemistry on.
And to
film.
piggyback what off you said, I mean, it took the hustle, it took the inner city, it took the sports, and kind of just threw it all together and made a real good movie.
Yep.
All right, so number 6 is League of Their Own, starring Tom Hanks. And again, we talked about all these movies that have great quotes, but I think this is probably, out of all our movies tonight, this is the one everybody remembers. There's no crying in baseball. Again, when I talked about our last, The Miracle, kind of educating me, I think this movie was a little bit of education too, just because it was funny and there was a story there, and it was kind of, like Chris said, kind of Disney-fied. I'm not sure if it was a Disney movie, but they made it, they pumped it up they made it more dramatic for the movie. But educational-wise, I mean, just kind of made me realize, you know, when we were at war, and they literally made this league because there wasn't enough guys to play baseball. I mean, that kind of hits home. I mean, it kind of hits you a little deep to think that so many of our guys were in war dying that they had to have women play baseball. And it's no disrespect to women or anything, as like coach girls softball, but it was kind of, to me, kind of slapped me in the face that, you know, we didn't have enough guys to play baseball, so we had to have girls play.
Yeah.
Andy?
Well, and I think again, we're saying all three of us have daughters that have played sports, and we've coached girls sports, and I think it's like the first. They've been fighting. I mean, it took Title IX and all that, and this was like one of the first steps of that, saying, hey, they can. I mean, we've seen girls play as tough as boys a lot. I mean, and just tougher sometimes, and do some things on the field or court that just taken for granted sometimes. So I think again, that impact, and and all these obviously all these stories are kind of they're always pumped up with the ones that are based on reality are always kind of they got to pump them up a little bit to make it a little more dramatic. But great movie. Like I said, and the impact that it showed, the historical, was showing something, and again, building women's sports. We're in the middle of watching U.S. soccer, doing women's soccer, doing great stuff now, and same thing. I mean,
USA
really,
and Japan played tonight for softball, so
another. I mean, how far it's come for where they weren't even expected they could hold their own, league of their own, and really how they could hold their own on the field. And, and now we're seeing girls. I mean, just crush the ball and do all kinds of. Great stuff.
I just saw today that women's tennis, Wimbledon's going on right now. Women's tennis, the jackpot's actually more for the women now than the men, and that just shows you how much we progressed in women's sports.
So League of Their Own released in '92, grossed around $132 million. The cast on this is kind of surprising. You don't put them together until you actually think about the scenes. Tom Hanks, Gina Davis, Lori Petty, Madonna, Rosie O'Donnell.
I totally forgot Madonna was in that movie.
Ann Cusack, John Lovitz, and Gary Marshall. Obviously a true story. Another tagline, I love this one. A woman's place is on home, first, second, and third. It's like,
again, that goes back into our stereotypes that we're talking
That's
about.
Right. Rosie O'Donnell actually threw, when she throws the two balls to the catcher, she actually learned to do that. A couple of the women from the league, when they were originally in the league, came out and showed her how to do it. So she actually was able to throw two balls at once to the catcher.
That's why he's our stat guy, because I had no idea.
And Davis, Gina Davis, when she catches the ball behind her back, she actually did that for real, because they were trying to get the stunt double to do it, couldn't do it. She goes out there and says, "Let me try it."
I'll show you.
First catch did it. So, and then the actual league lasted for 11 years, had 15 teams in it, and employed over 600 players during that time. So.
Wow.
I mean, it wasn't something small they just threw together. It lasted for a while. Lasted after the war ended for about 3 or 4 years, and then kind of downfall. But I mean, to sustain something like that during that time is incredible.
Absolutely. Awesome. So number 5 is Bull Durham, and us living here in the Charlotte area, we're not too far from where the story supposedly took place or was based on, and to me, I didn't understand. I guess I watched this movie when I was younger, and I knew that it was a good movie, and I knew some of the lines from it. But I actually coached with the guy that would use these lines all the time, and I didn't realize they were from this movie. And he'd come up with this stuff, and I'd be like, "Oh, that's pretty funny." He's like, "Hit the mascot nuke," and I was like, "Okay, that's kind of funny." I had no idea. I watched this movie. It was on TNT or something the other day. I was like, "Man, he got half his material for this movie." So, to me, I guess. It was a good movie. It definitely had kind of a love story going on. I think Major League kind of hit on that love story a little bit too when they had the catcher Tom Bergman, I believe, was going through all that. But to me, it's a good baseball movie. Like I said, there's a lot of great lines in it, and it kind of gives the average person kind of a dose of what minor league baseball is like. And I know it's movie-ized, but I think it kind of gives you a dose of, especially in that time period, what minor league baseball was like.
And I just think it's kind of raw, where Major League, once you're there, you're in Major League, you're making hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, even, 20 years ago. This is like guys fighting for their job. Again, this is what, the struggles. You got Kevin Costner on his way out. You got Tim Robbins on his way up.
Yeah.
It's the whole, the comedy of it, and you could just imagine this team being like that, just goofy together, doing, just the manager trying to motivate these 19-year-old kids who just want to party and play ball, and they're still acting like they're in high school almost, but they're playing ball, and they're like, well, my parents aren't here anymore, just like, that's the way they acted in that, and it's just, and again, it's like, it's just so raw, and it does it so well. Again, there's so many quotes from that. Even though it probably took 5 different team stories from there and put them all together in one movie, it does a great job of it. So, I mean,
And not to mention Susan Sarandon kind of invented the whole cougar thing that is so popular now, because that was like kind of, the cougar of that time, right?
Yep. Released in '88, made around $50 million. We nailed the cast. That was Costner, Sarandon, and Robbins. One of the quotes that I like is, "You just got lesson number one. Don't think. It'll only hurt the ball club." And that just, it's true. It's very true. The other thing, so the filmmakers didn't want to pay for extras in the movie, and there was a Pink Floyd concert nearby in Chapel Hill. So what do? They asked the ball club to go over and say, "Hey,
I'm learning all kinds of stuff tonight."
Can you send the fans over to the game?" So they do that, and they talk about some of the fans were probably half baked and high because coming from a Pink Floyd concert.
No way.
Why? But coming over and watch. So it's funny if next time you go back and watch it, look at the fans in the crowd, see the Pink Floyd shirts, and see if they're acting high or not. But so it's a little tidbits there.
Nice.
I'm doing that tonight.
So our number 4 movie, and before we get into number 4, just want to clarify Andy's last statement that he made. He's gonna watch the movie tonight, just to clear that
It's
up.
not gonna Pink Floyd it
And,
tonight.
and if you look at our top 10 albums, Pink Floyd wasn't there because I think you need to smoke a lot of pot to watch that.
My whole point of saying the statement was to avoid the
42. Hey, 42.
42.
Number 5.
4.
4. Sorry, 42.
I introduced Andy. That's why I just okay. So, anyways, number 44 is number 42, and I totally screwed that up, but that's okay. I've actually never seen this movie. These guys both voted it in. I did not because I felt like I couldn't vote on a movie I'd never seen. So, obviously, I know the presence of Jackie Robinson. I know what the movie was about, and obviously, since Major League Baseball retired his number, that should show you how important he was, and the number 42 is to the game.
Well, someone who did watch the movie, who came prepared a little bit here. Great movie. I mean, we've all known the Jackie Robinson story. I knew enough that it wasn't a lot of shock seeing this movie, but it was just so well done. I think Harrison Ford, I almost had to look at it like 3 times, going, that's Harrison Ford? You know what I mean? Even knowing he's older, he did such a good job as Branch Rickey. I mean, and I think one of the, and Jackie Robinson breaking the barrier there where he wasn't the first, African American in Major League Baseball, because they've been trying that for years. There were players. No. He was the one who broke the barrier, which opened the gates for it. But turn of the century, there were other players that were, because that's kind of a misnomer. He wasn't the first African American black player in Major Leagues, but he was the one who broke the barrier and moved forward. And I mean, that's again the impact. Growing up, I had no idea. I watched my Major League teams, and it was very integrated at the time. I had no idea all the struggles, but it's again, great story. The impact that has on sports beyond that is amazing.
I might watch it tonight.
Please do.
But I'm not going to listen to Pink Floyd when I do that.
I wouldn't either.
So Ricky actually picked Robinson knowing that he was a fighter, just his personality, he was a fighter, but also in the military. So he knew that he took a chance on a guy that was going to push back and was going to accept the things that was coming out. And that's exactly what Jackie Robinson did. And I think this story, because there's other Jackie Robinson movies, but this story told it a lot better than what the other ones did. Released in 2013, made about $95 million.
95.
We talked about some of the Chadwick Boseman plays Jackie Robinson in this.
Who's that?
Wakanda Forever.
Oh, got it.
Harrison Ford, Christopher Maloney, T.R. Knight, Lucas Black. Some of the quotes that were in there were good, and I just mentioned this a few minutes ago off camera, but dollars are black and white, they're green.
It's true.
It was all about money. Ricky needed to make money, and he said, "This is the way we're going to do it." So, and then Pee Wee Reese's line, "Maybe tomorrow we'll all wear 42, so nobody can tell us apart." And Major League Baseball does that now, so it's a nod to what happened in that area, what it's come through today, and what we continue to fight for.
Very historic movie.
And I think one of the things about Jackie Robinson that those first couple of years he kept quiet, but after that he played pretty tough and would knock down guys. And so that's kind of a misnomer that he was just this quiet guy, and he wasn't. No. He was again in the military. He played 4 sports at UCLA.
All right, so number 3 is going to be Caddyshack, and 2 of the 3 people on this selection committee thought it was a great movie. But
Let me throw it in there right now. I did not pick it on my list. To me, it's a great movie, yes. Is it a sports movie? I don't
Yes.
know. They're at a golf
Yes.
course.
golf.
But it's not about, but it's
As
not
Tiger
about
Woods
golf.
in golf is a sport.
Ty Webb.
All right,
Come
go
on.
ahead. Good.
For me, I think Bill Murray just nailed this role. I don't know of another actor that could have just went in there and did the role like he did. You know, just to this day, if I'm watching golf, I'm not watching golf with my sons on TV, and like some guys making a long putt, and it's in the hole. I mean, that's just, you have to say that. You know, it's like required by state law to say it's in the hole. So to me, it was a very funny movie. Again, I think a lot of the movies we're talking about tonight kind of introduced things to us. I think this movie, even though it was in a comedic way, it kind of introduced golf to the average person that didn't really watch golf, and I think it kind of just, and again, it was a satire a little bit, and it was kind of movie-fied, but it kind of gave a look for the average Joe about what pro golf was about.
I mean, this movie, again, one-liners, I mean, everything. I mean, all-star cast. I mean, my goodness. Bill Murray, you know, I mentioned we have Rodney Dangerfield. It's broken! Like, I mean, the whole movie, everything. And then you got, I mean, through all that, you got Danny Noonan we don't even know. I mean, you probably got some, I don't know if you have some stats on him, who was nothing. He was the main character, kind of, but then you have Chevy Chase. I mean, you got Chevy Chase, Rodney Dangerfield, Ted Knight. You have all-star cast, and they're almost none of them are really the main character, and they just revolve. I mean, you know, and it's around all the golf. I mean, yes,
The
it's a
chemistry
sports movie.
between all those guys.
And the way they just kind of mix it all. I mean, it just, I mean, a great movie. I mean,
Yeah, released in 1980, made $39 million. I think more of a, I don't want to say a cult classic, but I think it probably did better through the years than it did in the movie.
Probably.
And it picked up,
Yeah.
honestly. But the one-liners out of this movie, whoa, did somebody step on a duck?
I actually
love
said
line.
that today, actually.
nice hat. You get a free bowl of soup when you get that. Oh, looks good on you though.
10 nights, well, we're waiting. It's just, there's so many one, and then, like I said, is it a sports movie? To me, probably
Yes.
not. But, you know, it's a great movie. One other thing, it's filmed in Davie, Florida, which my neighbor, used to be my neighbor, will tell you all about it. He knows everything about this movie. But the funny thing I found is when they blow up the green at the end of the movie, the course owners didn't want that to happen. So what did the directors and producers do? They take them out to lunch. While they're out to lunch, they actually blow up the green. So when they came back,
Let
what
us
they did,
take
we'll
you out
just pay
to
you
lunch,
for it.
yeah.
So I think that's, you know, it just kind of falls into what the whole movie's about anyway.
It really
We'll
does.
do it on screen,
One
off
of
screen.
the
We'll just
funniest
screw it
things
all up.
Dangerfield and Chase probably came up with that idea. So number 2 on our list is The Sandlot, and again, when we put these lists together, we just don't wing it. We actually do a lot of research, and I look at other people's lists, other major publications and stuff like that. And this was one movie that seemed to be top 5 on every single list.
And top 3 on our list.
Yes.
Between us.
Yes, the cast, I think you talk about the Chevy Chase from Caddyshack and Rodney. I think the cast, as far as these being young actors, the chemistry they had, amongst each other was great. I mean, the story was great. I think we all kind of dealt with, whatever in our life was the situation with the ball, where we took the ball from he took the ball from his dad's den and it got messed up. I think we all kind of had that thing where we messed up as a kid and we were trying to hide it from our parents, and we were so worried about how they were gonna react. I think that was more of the story to me than the actual story. Was just that we could all relate, even though I think it was based in the 50s, and we're a little bit older or younger than that. I think that it's still the struggle. We talked about the struggle in a couple other movies earlier. To me, it was just the story. I think we can all relate with it. And me, growing up, that's what we did all summer. I mean, we were at our sandlot doing baseball, doing football all the time. And to me, I think it was just, it's what America, growing up in America at that time was about.
The American pastime. I mean, that's what and the relationships with those kids, and you had the kids that, you just love baseball. You had the kid that never played before. You had Benny, who ends up going and play professional ball. You have the other kids that were just average ball players but loved it. I mean, it was just.
Sorry, the catcher's always the fat kid.
Okay. But, it brought, and you know what, I mean, again, we watched this game, all these games, baseball, football, basketball, there are kids' games that professionally get played. I mean, this is what every kid dreams. This is just, you know, life. This is just, you know, I mean, like I say, you bring in all those kids. James Earl Jones is always a nice added addition to any baseball movie. But exactly, it just brings in more than that, and specs, all props to specs. I mean, did he marry Peppercorn after that kiss? I'm not sure later on in life, but
there's actually discussion about that.
Was it?
On the internet,
But yeah, I mean that's it. It wasn't just baseball. It was hanging out as kids, having a group of friends that had your back, that you went out and just were kids.
Yep.
You left the house at 7 o'clock in the morning and didn't come back till 7 o'clock at night.
Released in '93, made around 32 million. I'm kind of going the opposite of what you said. Is the cast of characters were kind of unknown. The kids that were in there, they actually went to younger kids. They got a little bit older kids, but the kids that were there were a lot of first timers in the movies. But Art LaFleur, Dennis Leary, James Earl Jones, like you said, and then to go back, the tagline for the movie is "A piece of paradise and a half block wide and a whole summer long." And that's
Smalls, you're killing me, Smalls, you're killing me.
That's the biggest
Come on.
quote, right? Shot in 42 days. The other thing is Beast the dog. In a bunch of the scenes is not a real dog. It's actually a puppet, and there's 2 guys in it at one point in a costume playing Beast. So I'm imagining the slobber scene was real. I can't imagine somebody doing that.
Right.
So the dog in it had to be real there. But yeah, I mean, just overall a great movie, and we touched it. It's a classic and a nod to that time and what kids did back then. Not to what kids do today, with sitting on their phone all summer and not being outside. But it's the perfect movie growing up.
Agreed. So number 1 on our list is going to be Rocky, and not the
Shirt guy.
not the shirt guy over here. He's gonna have a new nickname of the shirt guy. But again, I think this movie is really good because it shows that a lot of people don't know this, but it shows that Rocky, or Sylvester Stallone, actually wrote this movie and produced it. And you know, a lot of people gave him the stereotype as just the dumb meathead from the movie, but didn't realize that he made this movie what it was, and he made this happen. I'm sure these guys will get into a little bit more of the story, but you know, a lot of this was cut down. A lot of people didn't want to put it to film, and he kept fighting. And this is what he wanted, and look what the franchises it became. I mean, the franchise. We're just talking about this movie, but the franchise we don't even have to discuss. I mean, it's amazing. But the fact that he went in and fought for this, as a fighter. He went in and made this his dream.
His persistence.
Yes.
As a filmmaker and writer, that he portrayed as this Rocky character, and even though a lot of people like the whole thing about it being it's unbelievable, but that's what we watch. Like we said before, that's why we watch these sports movies. This was the epitome. This is the pinnacle of a sports movie where the underdog he's fighting for. Sylvester Stallone lived this life. He was ready to. Like the story, he sold his dog for $50 because he had to pay the rent, and it was just weeks before he finally sold it. The story and was able to build this multi-million-dollar. I mean, his whole career shot off because of this, but he wasn't going to give up. He wasn't going to give in to anything. This is the way I want it. This is what it is, and he was right. I mean.
And like I said about other movies earlier, this introduced boxing to the average Joe. The average Joe didn't realize what boxing was all about. And they watched the Muhammad Ali's and whatever, but they didn't realize the guys that were going to the gyms in Philly and working hard and doing the grind. So, like we said about several movies tonight, I think this one probably more true than all that is it introduced boxing to the average Joe.
Yeah. Released in '76, and it's carried. You talk about how movies carry through. This is carried through from '76 to now, and I'm sure for generations on. It'll be that movie that you can show.
Look what Creed is doing. Creed, it's basically the same story, but 30, 40 years later, and it's still box office.
And the next generation of it.
Box office slam.
And as far as sports movie or sports in general, there's so many. Usually it's team sports or something. This is boxing is that one sport that it's one-on-one. You got no one. I mean, you got your corner,
Except
but there's
Mick.
no one.
Don't forget about Mick. I mean, he can't say one-on-one. Rocky would not have won
But
that
I'm
fight.
saying in the ring. Once you're in the ring, that's it. I think that's where this is the only boxing movie on the list, but we had a lot in the conversation. And I think that's what we're looking for. We want the underdog to come up and win. We want that one-on-one. We want dig deep. How what do you have in you? And that's what this movie. I mean, you watch that movie and you get pumped up. I mean,
That's not what I got out of it at all. I want Mick in my corner. I just need a Mick. I need a Mick in my corner the rest of my life.
But that's all right. But you can still get pumped up from watching the movie.
Because of Mick.
Oh, did you not watch this movie?
So
Maybe a couple times.
going back to what you said though, with the iconicness of the movie and what it was, what it's done. But Sylvester Stallone, Burt Young, Carl Weathers won 3 Oscars and Emmy. The lines that came out: "Yo, Adrian.
Yo, Adrian.
Cut me, Mick. Mick, cut me. And you're gonna eat lightning and you're gonna crack thunder." That's probably my favorite line.
And 2 out of those 3 quotes were from who? Mick.
Took 3 days to write, going off of the story of the one I've heard of was $5 left in the bank for Sly, and he wrote the script in about 3 days. Went around trying to sell it, like you're talking about, and everybody wanted to cut him out of it, and he said, "No, it's mine. I'm sticking to it. We're gonna go with this." And finally, that's the way he did it.
Persistence, and that's the persistence of
He was
Rocky.
a fighter.
The persistence of Sly.
He had a Mick in his corner too, personally. I'm sure.
And then Adrian, his wife, she played the role perfectly.
She did.
Just that down
Simple,
home,
wasn't this
nothing to her.
prom queen.
Wasn't pretty, didn't have the body, and just a typical woman. And they actually cast Beth Miller for the part initially, and she turned it down, thankfully.
Thank God.
So,
Thank you.
and then
Some things just write themselves in the world, and this just writes itself in the world.
and Elvis wanted Sly to come over and watch the movie with him, and Sly never did it, and Elvis died a few months later. So
And then he
never
shot his
happened.
TV.
So,
Or he went into hiding, one or the other.
I got another peanut
He
butter
was at a
sandwich.
Burger King in Kalamazoo in 1990. So, hey guys, that's our list. Thank you so much for watching. Please give us suggestions, give us feedback, subscribe.
Click that link.
We're going to try to keep these lists going. So, again, if you have any suggestions, we'll do a top 10 list on just about anything.
And if you have not seen any of these movies,
Go back.
40, 42, anything, watch.
Yeah.
Go ahead and do yourself a favor, watch these movies.
I could learn all about Jackie Robinson because I
Please
didn't know
do.
anything about him
It's about
before
time.
tonight.
Out.
Peace.